Now, whenever I hear people excitedly exclaim about an amazing experience, they'll often use the expression, "Man, it's better than sex," which is really just another way of saying nothing is better than sex. However, there is sex, and then there is transcendental ecstasy that goes beyond what most couples have experienced or can even fathom. And what I'm here to share with you is how you and your partner can access this level of pleasure and fulfillment consistently. Now, first of all, my partner and I arrived at this state of sexual awakening in the most unlikely of circumstances after we first met. She was a 50-year-old postmenopausal woman who now finds traditional intercourse to be, well, let's just say, not very satisfying, and sometimes even painful. My situation, unfortunately, was far worse. As a result of treatments for prostate cancer, I was rendered clinically impotent. And because my treatments included surgical removal of my prostate, it meant that in addition to never being able to have an erection, I also cannot ejaculate. Now, for many men, this is a fate worse than death. I know, I've actually had a few tell me that to my face. And admittedly, in the beginning, I felt completely devastated about this state of affairs, to say the least. So for all practical purposes, penetrative sex was simply out of the question for us. However, fortunately, we both greatly enjoy giving and receiving oral pleasuring, and that opened up a whole new world for us in unexpected ways. Now, the first time we made love, we spent hours together expressing deep connection, intimacy, and a great deal of exquisite pleasuring. She was able to climax several times, which gave me the confidence that I could still be a, man for her, sexually speaking. Yet as excited as I was, and no matter what she tried, I simply could not release. In fact, I tried so hard that I actually started getting exertion headaches. You know, like sometimes when you try to do too many push-ups or something. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Despite not being able to climax, I wasn't feeling frustrated. In fact, quite the opposite. I never felt so fulfilled. And this response puzzled me because it was totally out of the realm of my previous experience or expectation. I should have been climbing the walls. Instead, I was basking in a deep glow of intense, intimate satisfaction that exceeded anything I had ever experienced before. Well, neither my partner nor I knew it at the time. This was our first clue to achieving heights of sexual bliss that neither of us ever imagined possible. After about a month and a half of trying to climax, my brain suddenly and without forewarning rewired. The first time it happened was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. Starting in my entire pelvic region, waves of seemingly high-voltage ecstasy traveled up from my pelvic floor through the femurs of both legs all the way up to my kneecaps. It was so powerful and lasted so long that I literally screamed. And from that point on, they've only become stronger and longer lasting. Now, from the perspective of having the experience of previous explosive ejaculatory orgasms, prior to my prostate cancer, versus what happens now, there is no comparison. I can only imagine that this is similar to what women, those who are highly tuned into their sensual bodies anyway, experience during climax. An experience I wouldn't trade for anything, including, as difficult as this may be to believe, getting my heart-on back. Meanwhile, my partner's experiences only continued to become more intense and frequent. So frequent, in fact, that she now is, somewhat embarrassed to discuss how many times she climaxes during our lovemaking because most people simply would not believe her. So there you have it. We are two lovers who are consistently receiving sexual pleasure way beyond anything we thought was humanly possible. And here's the clincher. We would both give it up in a heartbeat. My partner and I openly and authentically discuss our respective intimate experiences and what we like and don't like with each other all the time. We often ask each other the same question. If you had to give up one thing, the receiving or the giving, which would it be? And without a hint of hesitation, we both said we'd give up the receiving as long as we could continue to give to the other, meaning we would both be willing to forego our own climaxes as long as we could create the space for the other to have them. Think about this for a moment. When many couples become intimate, often their respective focus is on how each of them can receive their own powerful experiences. What we have found is that our greatest pleasure is the ability to give them to each other. Remember how I mentioned earlier on about that extended period of time when I simply couldn't climax no matter what my partner did or techniques she used? Yet I was totally and completely fulfilled without a hint of frustration? Exploring that seemingly contradictory experience is what helped lead us to our intimacy breakthrough. Focusing on giving to the other while being fully present for them and without expectations has been truly one of the most powerful realizations of our intimate life together. Intimate giving, without conditions and in a way our partner wants, provides each of us the most intense, pleasurable, and fulfilling physical intimate experience either of us have ever had by a wide, wide margin. Much more so than even the explosive climaxes we now consistently experience. Extraordinary intimacy, we have found, is all about giving and receiving in a fully present and vulnerable way. But for us, the giving is far more important to our overall experience than the receiving could ever hope to be. So the next time you make love, ask your partner what they would truly like and then give them that in a space of being fully present for them and without expectations, and watch what happens. And perhaps even more importantly, what happens for you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Extraordinary Intimacy with Michael J. Russell. For all speaking, media interviews, and workshop inquiries, go to michaelrusselllive.com. For private intimacy coaching, send an email to coaching@michaelrusselllive.com.